everyone. My name is Patricia Warren. Today I'll be giving you a speech on the traditional Korean wedding. This is a traditional Western wedding. As you can see, the bride is in white, the groom and the groomsmen all wearing tuxes, and the bridesmaids are wearing uniformed outfits, usually the same color scheme as the wedding. This is a traditional Korean wedding party. The bride is wearing a multicolored outfit called a hanbok. The groom is wearing a gwanbok, and the groomsmen are wearing white pantsuits with bright vests. Now, today we're going to be exploring several traditions of a Korean wedding. Some may seem unusual, but they are centuries-old traditions that represent a perfect union, also known as the yin and the yang. Jisoo, an Asian philosopher, says that marriage is a sacred union between the yin, the dark feminine side, and the yang, the light masculine side. Now, like most marriages, tradition starts with courtship. Life in Korea states that the first step to marriage is matchmaking. Back in the day, there were matchmakers who would collect evidence from unmarried people in the local town and would match them up based on social status, education, and family. When these matches were confirmed, she would go to these people's families, give them the matches. The groom's parents would then decide whether or not they were going to propose to the bride's family, and then the bride's family would decide whether or not they would accept the proposal. Most of the time, the groom and the bride were not really involved in this decision-making process and would usually not meet until the wedding itself. Now, in modern traditions, they do still have arranged marriages, but most are decided by the bride and groom themselves. So now that the engagement has been established, the next step is bartering, also known as selling of the ham. This is a ham. Korean historian Hyung Lee describes the story of the ham as groomsmen dressing up in costume and blackened faces, going to the bride's parents' houses and offering them hams. The bride's parents would then invite them in, give them food and drink, and barter the hams with them. Now, this tradition has modernized a little bit, turning more into a party where the groomsmen would come over and start chanting and singing "ham for sale," while the bride's family would jokingly barter for money and drinks and usually end up having festivities. The most important part of the ham is the contents, which is the hanseo. Hanseo is the wedding paper wrapped in silk that symbolizes the dedication of a wife to a husband. This wedding paper is very important to the wife. She will keep it on her at all times, and when she dies, it will be buried with her as well. Now we're going to go on to my favorite tradition, which is the wild goose. According to Life in Korea, a pair of wooden geese are made to represent a bride and a groom. The groom will then present one of the geese to the bride's mother to symbolize a virtue that wild geese have that need to be followed in marriage, such as mating for life, legacy for descendants, and structure and harmony. Now we go on to the wedding itself. This is a wedding parade. Now, wedding parade in Korea is big. The locals, family, friends, everyone is invited. The groom will usually ride in on a horse, while the attendants will be playing music, and they'll be walking to the bride's parents' house where the wedding will eventually take place. Now, as I said before, usually the bride and groom don't meet until the wedding. When they do, they will bow to each other, representing the promise and commitment. and seal that vow with a drink from of a special wine from a gourd that is grown by the mother of the bride. Now let's go on to the wedding attire. South Korean Wedding Network describes the hanbok as a colorful, elaborate top coat with flowing sleeves and 2 bows tied around the back, a wrap skirt up to the waist, and boat-shaped silk shoes. And the man is wearing a gwanbok, which is either a blue or maroon jacket with large sleeves, loose trousers, and a stiff black hat. Nowadays, most modern Korean people will opt for the traditional Western ceremony, including the tuxes and the white wedding gowns. Although they will try to incorporate their Korean path into it as well. During the ceremony, they will change into the Korean hanbok and gwanboks, just so they can have both sides in their wedding. A few days after the wedding, there is a reception at the parents' house, the parents of the groom. During this, red beans, cottonseed, and salt are sprinkled on the ground to ward off evil spirits. Sacks of grain and burnt straw are laid on the threshold for the bride to cross over in hopes of a good harvest. And, according to the knot, the bride will bring dates and chestnuts to the parents of the groom, to which the parents of the groom will throw the matter. She will catch them in her wedding dress, signifying prosperity of children. And now in the modern times, usually this reception will happen immediately after the wedding, not having to wait a few days. And it will also include a feast of noodle soup and sticky rice cakes. Now, let's summarize. Korean wedding today can be very traditional, with arranged marriages, bartering, running away of evil spirits. But today, they do keep some of those traditions alive with a little bit of a modern twist. One of the important things that is always the same since the beginning of time for the Korean wedding tradition is family. There are different cultures all throughout the world and different weddings going on. One of the great things about living in this country is all of those weddings can be happening at the same time in the same country. Learning about this heritage, the heritage of Koreans and the cultures of their wedding made me feel closer to my Korean half. Are there any questions?
Yeah, we have a few. So, one of the things you mentioned was that during the ceremony, the wife, the female's parents will throw chestnuts and dates.
The male's parents.
The male's parents will throw the chestnuts and the dates into the skirt of the bride. Do the dates and the chestnuts signify a male and female, or?
They do. The dates will signify females and the chestnuts will signify males.
Okay, cool.
Does the bride have any bridesmaids?
Sometimes, but usually no, because the bride is usually at her parents' house where the wedding takes place, and it's the groom and the groomsmen who are coming in the parade to her house.
Alright, and another thing that you mentioned was that there was a hanbok that they sell. That's what they barter to the parents. Usually what consists, or what's inside that they barter to the parents?
So what's inside of it is, like I said before, the wedding paper, which the bride will keep. There's also colorful strips of cloth made of red and blue, which signify the yin and the yang as well, and the balance of harmony within the marriage.
In the traditional Korean wedding, do they exchange wedding rings?
Usually they do not, but in modern times they have incorporated that into their ceremony.
Now, you mentioned that there was a hansil that the wife will keep with her until her grave. Typically, what's written in this hansil?
It's pretty much like a marriage certificate. It's the American version of a marriage certificate. So that way, even in death, she will have a piece of paper showing that her and her husband belong together after life.